Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Tochi. Today's video is one that you would want to watch, guys, because today we'll be comparing living in the USA and living in the United Kingdom. So for those who are thinking of moving to the UK or moving to America, we're going to be talking about life there. We're going to be talking about accommodation, feeding, how much they spend on healthcare, just the basic things. We'll be comparing the basic things, what life is like there in the US and what life is like here in the UK. So this is going to be very interesting. It's going to be fun and very educative as well. So you need to stick around so you get all the details. I have somebody special here. She's going to introduce herself and then we'll dive right into the video.
Hi everyone, my name is Linda Eze. I'm a registered nurse and I currently live in the United States. I also lived in the UK for almost 4 years and I decided to move to the US. So today we are going to be comparing the two and hopefully it will help you in your decision if you decide to move to the US or if you want to continue living in the UK or if you want to move to the UK if you are not already in any of these two countries. Okay.
So guys, Linda was in the UK and she's now in the US, right? So I'm like, who is the best person to come here if not Linda? So guys, we'll be talking about everything. Linda already knows what living in the UK is like and now she's in the US. So we'll be comparing the both, right? How safe it is for families and children, job opportunities for dependents, how easy it is to settle down, accommodation, getting a house, buying a house and all those things. Just basically what life is like for immigrants in the UK and in the US. So this is a video you would want to watch, okay? Let's just get started. So Linda, let's start from the very important one. Let's start with housing because obviously everyone needs a roof over their heads, right? So what is accommodation like in the US?
So I would say that accommodation in the US, so basically when we are talking about these things, it's good for us to like put it in perspective for immigrants. Like when you move to a new country, how easy is it for you to get accommodation? So I would say for me, it's a lot easier to get accommodation in the US. Because they have a lot of options, or I'm not really sure why it's somehow difficult, or maybe where I lived in the UK, when I lived in London in the UK, so I know it was a lot more difficult for me to get accommodation for me and my family when I moved to the UK. But in the US, I was able to get accommodation online. I didn't see the accommodation, and even though they would do the background check, but it wasn't as, they didn't say, oh, you're not qualified for this apartment or something like that. So it was a very easy process. So I would say for the ease of getting accommodation for immigrants, it's a lot easier in the US. And for the cost, so for the cost of, when I moved to the US, we started off with a 2-bed apartment, and then that apartment was $899. $899 was the rent of that apartment, and it's not like a city, so I wouldn't be comparing it. It would be so nice to compare it with London, and we were paying that much, $899. And then with the utilities and everything, with the accommodation, that is the utilities, I mean, will be maybe water and all these other ones. So the total of $1,200 a month. So that was the approximate we were paying every month in that apartment.
And for the price, we live in our own home right now, and we pay £530 every month for our mortgage. But those who are renting like almost the same space, similar houses around where I live, will be paying around £800, £900 every month. And when we first moved here, and we were in a 2-bed house and it was £600 every month, right? But I think the price of that house would have increased by now as well, because most landlords increase their prices this period in the UK. And I also understand that UK houses are a bit more smaller than houses in the US. Right, Linda?
Yeah, that's definitely true. So where I lived last in the US and in the UK, it was a 2-bed apartment, but one of the rooms would be like, they call it like a half room or something like that. So the other room would be like the big room, and the the wardrobe and everything is outside. But in the US, you have a walk-in. If I can show you it's like in the closet is like a walk-in closet that is almost like one of the rooms in the UK, and it's so large and everything. And right now we are also living in our own home, and it's also, everything is just extra. So yeah, in the UK, the last place I lived was 2-bed apartment, and we were paying 1,049 per month. And then maybe with the council tax and everything, we'll be averaging like 1,450. And my relative that is currently in Nottingham as well pays 600 and something for a 2-bed apartment. So definitely I would say, if we compare that, it's more in the US. It's just that you get more space, and then it's easy to get accommodation in the US as well. And for our mortgage as well, our mortgage as well is a lot more. We pay 1,200. And that is without all the insurance and all of that as a base. So obviously, UK is a win for the accommodation cost there.
Yeah, so houses in the US are a bit more expensive, though bigger. So yeah.
What I want to also talk about in the accommodation is that what I pay is like, we work with a plan. For me and my family, work with a plan. So that $899, because I know some people in the comment section will start saying, oh, it's a lot more and all of that. My colleagues, they pay $1,500, $1,800 for the apartment. I don't know why immigrants do that. Like, you come into a country, you want to live like in the best places. So some people pay way more than I pay. So the thing is that if you decide to look for a cheaper accommodation, you will be able to see it. But some people decide to pay a lot more.
So let's move to feeding, right? How much do you spend for feeding every month in the US?
So for feeding, I would say we spend maybe between 500 to 600 in a month for a family of 4.
So was that the same for you when you were in the UK?
So it's almost the same. For when we are in the UK, we were also paying like £500 per month, or between £400 to £500 per month for feeding. So I would say that the cost of food for what we are spending in the UK and the US is relatively the same, if not the same.
Okay, now let's talk about transportation. Transportation I'm so glad that you have lived in the UK, so it makes the work a bit more easier. Let's talk about transportation. So how easy it is with transportation in the US? Do you need to drive if you have children just to be able to move around? Is it easier, or are there buses and trains and all those things where it makes it easier whether you have a car or not in the US? What is it like for you?
So that in the UK, I did not drive. And the reason maybe because we were planning to move, so we never even tried to buy a car or anything. So I did not drive, and we didn't feel it that much. It's easy to just check when the next bus will come, and then we'll go to the bus station. There is train, and if I'm running late, I take a taxi. So obviously in the UK, their transportation system is really good, so you have so many options. But here in the US, even to get a job, they will make sure that you have a driver's license. So it's like the first thing to do is to buy a car. So here we use more of car, and the first time I've not used their bus yet, but I'm planning to use their bus soon.
What I've heard about the UK and the US, I think is a lot more easier here in the UK than in the US, because you can really survive in the UK if you don't have a car. Then we'll go to healthcare, right? This one's another important one. So Linda, over to you. For the US, what would you say your healthcare system is like?
So I would say that I really love the healthcare in the US. I know that so many people will say, oh, because you have to pay and all of that. But what I love about the US healthcare system, maybe because it is people pay for it, you need to have insurance and all of that, is the access. The access is a lot very quickly. Like, even if it is preventive health, even if it is not something that is urgent, because my experience in the UK is that if it is something that is urgent, you get all the attention immediately. But if it is something that you need to check, or you're complaining about one thing, Then they have to give you appointments. And sometimes I remember, because my one of my child, my first, needed to like check some things and everything, they'll give us like 3 months appointments. So what I love about the US healthcare is the access. And I'll say for in the US, my experience is that for preventive, anything preventive, you don't pay. If you have insurance, right, you don't pay anything. And then for if they have to do something, like my second child that had to see a specialist, we had to pay $100.
So how much do you guys spend on healthcare in the US?
So right now, because we don't have, what we have been assessing is preventive health, like just checkup. So for checkup, we pay nothing. So for my child, the only one that we have had to pay anything is the $100 we had to pay because you had to see a cardiologist for something. So that one we had to pay $100. And another thing I also want to say is that you can also have, when you work maybe with a federal or a state in the US as well, the healthcare is also, I would say, is free for the person that is also working with the federal or state. But for most parts, you have to pay insurance, and the insurance depends on the kind of insurance.
Okay. Right. So for the UK, obviously healthcare is free. Yeah, though you pay IHS fee, but then you want to argue that it's free as well, because with that covers every other thing. You don't have to pay for any other thing except maybe your medication or something.
I gave birth in the UK and I didn't have to pay anything.
So if you're going to have another child in the US, get ready to pay.
We'll compare that one. Yeah, that's true. We'll see. Yeah, but definitely, okay. UK having the free healthcare is really a good plus, because as a nurse, I see people who worry that they don't have insurance, and that really I feel it a lot, because even though I have the insurance, I still have people that they come to the hospital and they don't have insurance, and it doesn't feel good. But in the UK, I don't see any patient worrying that they don't have insurance, and so that's a good thing for me.
Right. So you see, you can't really have it all. Okay. Let's talk about, we're talking about children, right? Let's talk about schools for children. For the UK, obviously, education is free here for children from 4 years. Would you say, what is it like in the US for children?
Yeah, with my experience right now is that education is also free. So I would say, yeah, it's similar to UK.
Okay. Do people also have like childcare issues in the US? Like, is it expensive?
Yeah, of course. It's the same everywhere abroad. But
would you say there are job opportunities for dependents in the US than in the UK?
I will not say that it is more. It just depends on the kind of job you want to be doing in the US. I believe that the US is kind of a free place, in the sense that if you have any qualification from your home country and decide to verify it, because they want to make sure that it's equivalent to the one they have in the US. So if you are an engineer, for instance, in Nigeria, and you want to do the same here, if you verify your document and apply for jobs, they will consider you and you'll be able to get that job. And if you want to do other jobs like the support worker you have in the UK and the healthcare, you need to go for a certification or something like that. So usually it's between 3 to 6 weeks, and then you do that training and get a certification that is recognized, and it's easy to get a job when you do that. And if you have a driver's license, especially when you first come into the US, if you have a driver's license, you have a lot of options to work, because I think that's the main thing that's the number one thing that they usually ask for. Once you have that, so for my husband, it was very easy for him to start doing something in the US. And then if he decides to go for any small training at all, then you can get something that is more. Yeah, so it's easy. And if you want to, start business and all of that, I feel like US is a little bit more open. You have like more options here in the US than in the UK. But in the UK as well, it wasn't difficult for my husband to start doing things. It's just like, maybe it's not something you want to do, but yeah, it's easy as well. It was easy for my husband to start something.
Okay, so finally, we'll talk about safety, right? How safe to you, considering the fact that you have lived in the UK and in the US. Which of the countries would you say is safer?
So I believe that some of these things, these videos, right, we do it because we want to give people the real thing, right? I'm saying this because I know a lot of people have called me when they pass their NCLEX. They call me, oh, does he want it to move from the UK to the US and all of that? So I will say based on my experience. So my experience is this: I feel very safe where I am. And I really feel like the environment where I am is safe. People are great. And the first time that I have had to deal with the police, we have, unfortunately, and we have had to deal with the police. They were extremely good and professional. That I was like, because I don't know what I was expecting because of what you see on social media. People saying America is this, America is that. They were so professional. I felt like maybe I should have joined the army or something, because I loved how they treated the whole thing. So I will say that the crime and everything that we hear about in the US is more on the news. And how big US is something that we also have to consider when we are talking about safety. Texas is like almost bigger, at very, very big, like a huge country as well in Africa. So you'll be thinking, okay, if something happens in New York, everybody hears and they say, oh, in America this happened. But definitely it's something that we worry about. Like when you hear, oh, there was shooting in one place like that, or there was shooting in that school like that, you feel it, right? Because you hear all of them. But generally I would say that we feel safe. Yeah, at workplace, you see that there is security and everything, so we feel safe generally. And when I was in the UK as well, I remember that one thing I usually talk about is that how safe you feel walking on the streets and then going to the train stations in the night, like for some of us that do night shifts. And then, but you still hear some of those, maybe there was stabbing there, or maybe you come home and then the CCTV captures somebody that was loitering and all of that. They tell you to be careful and all of that. But that is obviously a lot less scarier than when you hear that there was shooting somewhere. So, but generally, I would say that I feel safe. I see a lot of Nigerians that live here and they have lived here for many years and they are happy and they are not looking at moving to any place. And for me right now, I don't think I'm going nowhere, and I don't regret one bit that we moved here. So
yeah, I think we've touched on the basic things. You guys, you have seen it, so decide for yourself where you would love to move to. All right, people are in America, they are doing well. People are in the UK and they are doing well too. So feel free to move wherever you want to move. Okay, so we've come to the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you, Linda, for coming. You guys, Linda is on YouTube. Do well to visit her channel and show her support, and I'll see you guys in my next one.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye.